Vectors and matrices are advanced features in other languages that are introduced in the data structures topic. However, in MATLAB, they're really a focus and are really a very basic building block. The term MATLAB is actually short for Matrix Laboratory, so everything in MATLAB is written to work with matrices and vectors. So we're going to introduce vectors and matrices here, and then more will be covered later on in the data structures topic. So first of all, a matrix is used to store a set of values of the same type, and every value is stored in what is called an element. A matrix looks like a table. It has both rows and columns. And we say that the dimensions are m by n, m rows by n columns. So in this example, we have 2 rows, and we have 3 columns. So this is a 2 by 3 matrix. So again, 2 rows by 3 columns. A vector is a special case of a matrix in which one of the dimensions is 1. So a row vector is just a single row. In this case, this is a 1 by 4. It's 1 row by 4 columns. A column vector is a single column. In this case, a 3 by 1. It's 3 rows by just 1 column. And a scalar is an even more special case. It's a 1 by 1. In other words, just a single value. So vectors and scalars are just really special cases of matrices. In MATLAB, we frequently use the term array to refer generically to either a matrix or a vector. In other languages, what we're calling a vector here is called a one-dimensional array, a 1D array, and a matrix is called a two-dimensional array. Let's take a look at some ways that you can create, first of all, row vectors in MATLAB. So a row vector can be created by directly putting inside of square brackets the values that you want to have, either separated by spaces or by commas. Doesn't make any difference. You see, both of these do exactly the same thing. They create a vector which has the 3 values, 5, 33, and 9. And since we didn't suppress the output, we see what is stored in the vector. The colon operator is very powerful. It can be used to create a vector in which square brackets are not necessary. So the default step value with the colon operator is 1. Here's an example. A vector is 2 colon 5. So that says I want all of the integers from 2 to 5 in the default step of 1. So in other words, I get 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I can specify a step value. So saying vec gets a value of 1 colon 2 colon 8 says I want to go from 1 to 8 in steps of 2. So we start with 1, add 2 to get 3, add 2 to get 5, add 2 to get 7. But then if I added another 2, I would get 9, and that goes beyond the last value that I specified, so it doesn't do that. So I just get the vector 1, 3, 5, 7. Now if I say the vector goes from 6 to 4, you can't go from 6 to 4 in steps of 1, so you get an empty vector if you try to do that. But you can go backwards, so I can say vec is 6 colon negative 1 colon 3, so that says go from 6 to 3 in steps of negative 1. So start at 6, minus 1 is 5, minus 1 is 4, minus 1 is 3. So those are some ways that you can use the colon operator to create a vector. Now, to refer to elements in a vector, the elements in the vector are numbered sequentially starting with 1. And these element numbers are called the indices or the subscripts. So generally when I write a row vector like this, I would put the indices above it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, those are the subscripts or the indices. And the way you refer to a particular element in a vector is by giving the name of the vector, in this case vec, and then in parentheses the element number. So for example, if I said vec parentheses 4, the way I'd say that out loud is vec sub 4. That's the 4th element in the vector, which in this case is the negative 4. Now, how you can create column vectors? One way to create a column vector is to put the values inside of square brackets, but instead of separating by spaces or commas, you separate by semicolons. So this gives me the column vector negative 2, 11, 5. To refer to an element in a column vector is exactly the same as a row vector. Give the name of the column vector and then in parentheses the element number that you want. In this case, C vec sub 3 is the 5, the 3rd element. Now, to create a matrix using square brackets, you separate the values in each row with spaces or commas, or you use the colon operator method, and you separate the rows with semicolons. So here's a matrix that has 2, 3, 4 in the first row, and then 7, -1, 5 in the second row. So this gives me a 2 by 3 matrix. Now, to refer to an element in the matrix, you say mate, and then in parentheses you give first the row index and then the column index. So second row, first column is going to be the number 7. So it's always the row index, comma, the column index. Another way you can create vectors and matrices is using the randi function to give you random integers. So for example, this says I want a vector which is 1 by 5 vector in which every element is in the range from 1 to 20. So I get a 1 by 5 row vector, and each element is a random integer in the range from 1 to 20. Here's another example of a matrix. Matrix is going to be a 2 by 4 matrix where each element is in the range from 1 to 100. So I get a 2 by 4 matrix. Every element in the matrix is in the range from 1 to 100.